Christianity as we know it was created mostly by Paul, who used to be called Saul of Tarsus. He was a killer. Then he fell off his horse, had a conversion experience, deemed himself the #1 follower of Jesus, and then badgered the real disciples to let him preach to the non-Jews, something they were against, because Jesus said he came for the Jews. So long ago, way back in Jerusalem, you can envision Paul fighting with the real disciples of Christ. He never met Christ, but he became the actual founder of Christianity as we know it today, because he spread it to the non-Jews, and it's his church that survived, not the original Christian church of the real disciples of Christ, who stayed in Jerusalem. Paul focused north into Europe, just like Rome had. Rome obliterated Europe with its greed conquest just prior to the time of Christ. Later, after Paul, after Jesus, Christianity used the Roman roads, and on the heels of Rome, in the decline of Rome, it was used throughout Europe as a tool by the fledgling governments to control the people. It was thus forced on the white people, and their own culture, partly destroyed by Rome, was finished off by the spread of Christianity. Their own culture, it was called pagan, though they have every right to have their own culture, without bad labels. Just as the indigenous people of Britain were forced to the edges by the coming in Saxons, Angles, Jutes, etc., who, with their Germanic language, labeled the indigenous people as foreigners, or Welsh. So still today we have the Welsh, which means foreigners in the original Germanic language that came into Britain with the Saxons. But the Welsh, or foreigners, were indeed the indigenous people. Thus the victors write history. Thus the victors get to label who is who. Prior to that all, white people had a religion much like Hinduism. And they had their own religion, and they had their own culture, their own language, all across Europe. They have every right to it. As a descendant of those people, I am not at all Jewish. Therefore, I do not need to accept the ancient book of that one tribe, which they call the Torah, or some call it the Old Testament. Nor do I need to accept the New Testament, or the new book, which is about the major magician, rebel rabbi that lived 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem. Just one of many magical, spiritual prophets that have come on earth to lead people. He may have been a great guy. I believe he probably was. But I don't have to follow him. There have been many great prophets in many parts of the world. And since I've traveled India, I'm well aware of the many saints who have appeared in India who have been worshipped much the way Christ is. I find meditation, vegetarianism, the philosophies of Hinduism and Buddhism to be much more relevant, uplifting, spiritual, broad, and helpful. Holding on to ancient past, unworkable ideas that keep us divided, keep us as separatists, keep us hateful, these are not helpful anymore. And I think a new day has come where all humans can more see their similarities, more see their spiritual nature as organic spirit beings born of some divinity who we don't exactly know, but we can sense exists. And we are going towards some destination which we can sense, but we don't exactly know. I think if we all focus on these similarities, our likeness, our oneness, we'll have a better future. And we really don't need the ancient archaic ideas that were born in our old separate nations in a time when we could not travel or talk to each other. Those things have all changed. It's time for a new, revised, spiritual standard for the world, for ourselves.